Earlier this year, Warren Buffett, the greatest investor of our lifetime, was asked about inflation, and he issued a massive warning. He said, prepare now for huge inflation to be coming. Warren was using all sorts of data points inside of his companies, seeing their cost rising, and also passing on a lot of those costs to their consumers and raising their prices. Here's exactly what Warren had to say in his issuance of this warning back earlier of 2022.
We're seeing very substantial inflation. It's very interesting. We're raising prices. People are raising prices to us. It's being accepted. I mean, it's not, take home building. I mean, the cost of, we've got 9 home builders in addition to our manufactured housing thing and then operation, which is the largest in the country. So we really do a lot of housing. The costs are just up. Steel costs just every day. They're going up, and there hasn't yet been, because the wage stuff follows. I mean, if the UAW writes a 3-year contract, we got a 3-year contract. But if you're buying steel at General Motors or someplace, you're paying more every day. So it's an economy really. It's red hot. I mean, and we weren't expecting it. I mean, all our companies, when they thought when we're allowed to go back to work, at our various operations, we closed the furniture stores. I mentioned, they were closed for 6 weeks or so on average, and they didn't know what was going to happen when they opened. And they can't stop people from buying things, and we can't deliver them. And they say, well, that's okay, because nobody else can deliver them either, and we'll wait for 3 months or something. And sort of the backlog grows, and then we thought it would end when the $600 payments ended, and I think around August of last year. It just kept going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. People have money in their pocket, and they pay higher prices. And when carpet prices go up in a month or two, we announced a price increase for April. For our costs are going up. Supply chains all screwed up, for all kinds of people. But it's almost a buying frenzy, except certain areas you can't buy yet. You really can't buy international air travel, and so the money is being diverted from a piece of the economy into the rest, and everybody's got more cash in their pocket except for. Meanwhile, it's a terrible situation for a percentage of the people. There's more inflation going on quite a bit more inflation going on than people would have anticipated just 6 months ago or thereabouts.
Now, what is fascinating about this is that when Warren Buffett issued this warning, everyone thought that meant that CPI would just continue to go up and up and up, but it hasn't. Actually, CPI went from 9.1% to 8.5% in July. And all of a sudden, the critics, they started to celebrate. Inflation was coming down, right? Wrong. We are now entering into a phase known as the base effect. Last year, starting in June, all the way through the end of the year, the CPI inflation number went from 5 to over 7%. So this year, as we continue to see very high inflation, it's on top of last year's high numbers. This is a compounding effect, meaning that inflation is not just up 8.5%. It's up 8.5% on top of the 5% it was up last year. That base effect means that we should expect the CPI number to come down, but inflation is still here, and it is still punishing the people who are most vulnerable in our society. Warren Buffett was right that we should prepare for huge inflation. As the Federal Reserve continues to tighten financial conditions, they are going to try to bring that number down. But just because the CPI number actually comes down doesn't mean that we're going to roll back the price increases or that the average American family will be in a better position. Add in things like supply chain disruptions and the current geopolitical chess that is playing out on the continent of Europe, and now you can see how we are starting to enter into an energy crisis. Going into the winter months, there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of uncertainty, but inflation is still a massive problem. Eventually, the Federal Reserve will run out of ammo. They can't continue to raise interest rates forever unless they want to bankrupt the United States of America. And so naturally, at some point, the Fed will wave the white flag, they will pivot, and they will return to loose monetary policy. The question is, how much can they get inflation under control before they hit that moment? I don't have those answers, but somebody like Warren Buffett, who has so much information at his fingertips and sees so much of the data coming from his own companies, if he's issuing warnings about huge inflation on the horizon, I would listen if I was you. Hey you, did you like this video? Great, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and see you next time.